Hello everybody, I'm Riley Woodall and welcome to the Toss-Up. This week join me as we head to the tennis courts to serve up some analysis on IU men's and women's tennis. And later in the show we'll break down some of the biggest storylines on the professional side of things. Stick around because it's all next on the Toss-Up. Well, before conference play begins in March, I figured I'd highlight a couple teams that deserve a spotlight for the work they're putting in. IU men's and women's tennis. On the women's side, they're 4-5 with wins against Butler, Bellarmine, Western Michigan, and Chicago State. For the men, a 9-2 record with a lot of upperclassmen experience. Two different teams with a lot of interesting storylines. And here to break that all down with me, we have some amazing tennis heads with me, Hayley Adams, Zeke Shapiro, and Caleb Robbins. Guys, thanks for coming on the show. We're talking some tennis today. I'm excited. So, Hayley, I'm going to go to you first. We'll talk about the women's side of things. So they're a very young team, mostly freshmen. So in your opinion, how does that affect their court performance, and what are some of the learning curves that do come with a younger team like this?
Since they're like 5 out of the team are freshmen, they don't understand what it's like to go on the road as much. And a lot of them are international players where they were higher ranking where they were. So they're used to being in their kind of comfort zone. But with where they're at now, they're not used to branching out and going out on these long trips, like being away for 3 weeks and getting all that down. I feel like they'll get used to it, but since they're freshmen, it's all new to them.
And Zeke and Caleb, I'll bring you two in on the men's side of things. They're 9-2 right now this year, 9-0 at home. They were 11-5 at home last season. In your opinion, from what you've seen from this team, what has been critical to their success, to winning so much here in Indiana?
Well, with any Power 5 conference tennis team, the schedule at the beginning is mainly at home, and it's mainly against lesser opposition. So last year, again, they started very strongly, and then their first big opposition is that they went to Middle Tennessee State. Unfortunately, couldn't win. So we had a similar situation this year, and they beat Middle Tennessee State, and it really comes down to the upperclassmen that they have on their team that were in the background last season, but have really stepped up so far.
And Caleb, anything to, yeah, go ahead.
And piggybacking off of what Zeke said, you know, there's been no Big Ten play. So you really see in the beginning of the season what they're made of. And I don't think people talk enough about the courts. I think each court is different, clay, outside, inside. And I think with the courts and the kind of the texture of it and just the comfortability of it, I think it allows the players to really just play their game without any distractions.
Zeke, you mentioned the upperclassmen. What is the vibe and how is it different from a team like women's tennis that's a lot younger, a lot less experienced? This team, these guys have been working together for several years. So how is that going to help them as they move into the tough Big Ten schedule like you guys were talking about?
Well, it means a lot going from 3 seniors last year that left the team to now a new group of seniors that had their difficulties last season, but have so far really stepped up and have proven to be great leaders for some of the underclassmen who are still starters. So you have seniors like Jagger Saylor, Michael, Andre, who have really stepped up into leadership roles where last year they were sort of learning how to be a leader from 3 of the seniors that left. So it's been really important for them to have that leadership right now and moving forward.
Yeah, and I would also just say, like, there's a combination of veterans, but also someone like Sam Landau, who just beat the 18th ranked player for Middle Tennessee State. And I think that when you have a combination of veteran leadership and players that come in with a lot of talent and a lot of fire, that just proves when you get deep into a tournament or when you play a lot of matches, just like this weekend when they played 3 matches in 3 days, you're better suited than teams who may have been there in the past but may not be there in the future.
Hayley, I'm going to bring you back in to talk on the women's side of things. So they win their first 4. Then they run into Yale at home, and they haven't won since. They've lost 5 straight. What was working for them in the beginning that you think they need to piggyback off of and get back into, and what are some of the things that they can do to get back on track?
I feel like since they are freshmen, they were all kind of very jostled by the idea of going up against the Yale Ivy League school. And since they're still fresh in their season, they haven't really run through all of their roster choices yet. They have a couple that are really sticking, and when they move those around, it kind of jostles them too much to be able to continue the pattern. I feel like when they get back on the home soil, they're doing a lot better because they're more comfortable in their home setting.
So we'll jump into kind of an overview of both teams. Hayley, I'll go back to you on this one. Some top performers, even though it is a younger team, some top performers on this Indiana women's tennis squad.
We're going to have to go with Elizabeth Dunack on this one. She has been having a stellar performance so far. She has a 6-1 record, which is the best out of her entire team. She's always a light on the court, and she always tries to bring up everybody else, even when she's the only one really getting through the rest of the game.
Yeah. Gentlemen, on the men's side.
I'd have to say Michael Andre. You know, last year he was on the bench the entire season with a major injury, and everyone was wondering what he would do, how he would react to coming back into this season. And he's really performed very well going up against some serious opposition. He's very vocal on the court. You can always hear which court he's on after he wins a point. He's very loud. But even that really motivates a team to do well, and we've already seen him come to be a big team leader.
For me, it has to be Facundo Yunus, the redshirt freshman from Munich, Germany. If we're talking about talent, he has it. He may be the most talented player I've ever seen play college tennis. And that may be like a strong take, but I truly believe it. For him, it's really confidence and consistency. You may see him hit a 100-mile-per-hour serve, but then the next play may just hit into the net. So I think just based on tennis and based on how he's performed, he's really not getting into his head as much. And like for any tennis player, it's the next point, it's the next point, it's the next point. And for him, if he keeps up that mentality, he'll be #1 singles in no time.
So on the men's side, again, some players that maybe aren't getting the recognition that they deserve that you think they should. An underrated player on this IU men's tennis team.
I would say Nikola Koyachev. He's another freshman, someone who's been kind of up and down this year. Some matches which haven't been finished because of the rules, but it's a lot of experience from him. And I would say a lot of his swings are just compact and it's just smooth. And I think that you can just see that as a tennis fan or spectator. And for someone like him who has so much future with a lot of young and veteran players, like he doesn't have to be great right now. He doesn't have to be put or sprung into the spotlight, and there's a lot of future there.
Zeke.
And I'd have to say it's Jagger Saylor. You look at the team and you see all these big names, and Jagger Saylor was sort of in the background these past few years. And I'd have to say that Sunday's match against Middle Tennessee State was really his coming out party. It was 3-3. He was the last match on, and we've seen the last couple of years where he's sort of been outmatched when it comes to bigger teams, but he got it done, and he really showed how much he's improved. His name isn't brought up a lot, but after that match, I think we're going to be talking about him more as the season progresses.
Hayley, an underrated player on the IU women's tennis team.
I would have to go with Laura Schneider because she's a redshirt junior. She has fought off a couple injuries this season, but she's played through each and every one of them.
So we've got a lot of tennis to play. Conference play hasn't started yet, but it's about to. So, Hayley, I'm going to go back to you to kind of preview the rest of the IU women's tennis season. Your outlook, kind of where you think they're going to land, some matches they're going to win, maybe some upsets, maybe some tough losses, different things like that. How do you see them faring the rest of their season?
Since they're going up against Iowa first and they don't have the greatest record against them for the past couple years, especially with the newer team, I feel like the beginning's going to be the roughest part. And then they go up against people that they've lost again and again for like Ohio State and everything else. And I feel like it's just going to be a rough beginning, but if they can get through that, they can get through the rest of it.
Zeke, Caleb, the outlook on the men's tennis season.
Well, last year, IU had to actually play in to get into the Big Ten, and they won a thriller against Penn State and got in there. But with the performances that we've seen so far this year, there is going to be a lot of improvement in terms of conference play. We've seen teams like Purdue losing to lesser opposition like Drake, who IU shut out. And it's really going to be interesting to see how high IU can get in the Big Ten standings. And in my opinion, they're going to be a lot higher than they finished last year.
Caleb, take us home.
And I'm looking ahead to a weekend in Michigan, April 5th. They go to Ann Arbor for Friday night game, and then they finish off with Michigan State on Sunday. And if you can get one of those matches, it shows that you're not in the middle tier, you're in the top tier. And I understand Michigan may be a hefty task. They are a team that has a lot of players going to the championships each and every year, but who knows? IU could be on the come up.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be very interesting to see how they fare in conference play, but you never know. These two teams got a lot of fire, got a lot of passion, and definitely a lot of amazing tennis coming up. But stick around because coming up after the break, we take a look at some of the hottest names on the professional scene. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's a pro tennis edition of Who You Got. Here's how it works. I've got 5 questions lined up for each of the panelists, and they have 30 seconds to give me their response. You guys ready? All right, Hayley, I'm going to you first. Best player on the men's and women's side of things?
Novak Djokovic, the GOAT for the win, and also Coco Gauff.
Zeke.
Well, I would say Novak Djokovic if we were about 5 years in the past, but for now I am going to say Carlos Alcaraz. Just 20 years old, but he has shown himself to be an absolute stud. And in a few years' time, I think we're going to be seeing the birth of a legend on the men's tennis tour. For the women, I also got to go with Coco Gauff. The energy, the passion, the style, she's just been unreal on the women's side of things.
Caleb.
I got to go with another young phenom, Yannick Sinner. He's had a big win, and Coco Gauff. She's just incredible.
Back to you, Caleb. The biggest upset of the early season so far?
I would have to say in the Australian Open when Sinner beat Medvedev. You know, it was a 5-set match. Spirits ran high and kept his composure and got the win.
Zeke.
I'd also have to say Sinner. I think it's hard to put into words just how big of an upset that was. Medvedev was flying very high, could have taken advantage of a big situation, beating Zverev in the semifinals. I thought Sinner's win in the semifinals was a bit of a fluke, but he turned it around and absolutely shocked the tournament.
Hayley.
I'm going to have to go with Carlos Alcaraz losing his to Zverev, because that was just, you weren't expecting that number 6 to beat him. It was just a very upsetting day.
So a very exciting moment to a very not so exciting moment. Hayley, the biggest letdown so far this season?
As a big Nadal fan, I feel like my biggest letdown is his muscle tear, because I was just so waiting for him to come back from his knee injury. In the first week of the Aussie Open, he was out, and it was just so devastating.
Zeke.
Let's go back to that Aussie Open final. I really thought Medvedev was going to take the Australian Open. I really thought that he was on his game. I thought Sinner had played very well, but again, I thought that his tournament run was going to end, maybe a few fluke results, but he really let me down. I thought he was going to take it.
Caleb, biggest letdown?
I would also have to say Medvedev. This is 2 in a row that he's lost in kind of devastating fashion. And for tennis, which is a game that is so mental and can get in your head, like, I really hope that doesn't stop him from continuing to improve, because we would all love to see him back in the court again.
So we'll move to tournament competition, the most exciting and or competitive tournament that you've seen so far this season.
It would have to be the Australian Open. It just, in Australia, just everyone is there, everyone's competing. It's a great time, and it's simple. The best tennis players play there, and that's all you want to see.
Zeke.
I have to say Indian Wells is the tournament that I'm looking forward to the most, and that's mainly because we recently got the news that Osaka and Venus Williams are going to get wild card spots. They are 2 of the most electrifying players in women's tennis. Can't wait for that. And on the men's side, the big question is, can Alcaraz defend his title?
Hayley.
I feel like the French Open, because a lot of my favorite players like Emma Raducanu and Rafael Nadal have been injured most of the time this season, and by that time they'll be back in play, and I feel like it'll definitely rile up the stand.
So Caleb, they gave their previews on tournaments that they're most looking forward to. We didn't get yours yet. The tournament you're most looking forward to the rest of this season?
I would say it's the Miami Open. It's in Miami. There's going to be a lot of celebrities there. They're definitely going to be wanting some great tennis play, and I think the key is, especially when there's conditions where it may be hot, it's really conserving energy. And these players have been playing for a long time, and they're going to do that.
Guys, a couple other tournament competitions that you're looking forward to that may shock the world, potentially.
Wimbledon, just because I feel like that one normally has a lot of the biggest question marks for who's going to win.
The French Open, just because I think it's such a specialty tournament being played on clay, that if someone named Rafael Nadal is not playing in it, it is a wide open tournament and anyone can win it. But if he is, obviously, he'll take the crown there. But it's such an open tournament, and it's really about who can conform, who can adjust to playing in such a unique court.
Such an amazing time to be a tennis fan, and certainly a lot of amazing and exciting tennis coming up. Caleb, Zeke, Hayley, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. That's going to do it for us this week. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV Sports, and give our Toss-Up socials a follow at the Toss-Up IU and at the Toss-Up 23 for Twitter and Instagram, respectively. As always, be sure to serve it up this time. Find out if we'll return it, and we'll see you next week. God bless.